Hello again to another live from the Tea Crane in Kyoto. The idea for today really is to just enjoy some tea, have a nice chat. Um, Also see if there are some of you that want to ask us some questions. And of course, we always like to set a topic for the chat. So today we're thinking of discussing water, the importance of water for tea, how it can affect your tea, what kind of water you should get, etc. And also talk a bit about the water that we're using here, and let's see in which other areas or which other topics we get into. So excited to be here again together with Linnea today.
Hello.
And I'm going to get started with brewing some tea. I've got this nice Yabukita Sencha from Yame.
Ooh.
It's in the southern areas of Japan. Yame is in Fukuoka Prefecture, which is the northern area of Kyushu.
Mhm.
And the interesting thing about this sencha is that it's a Yabukita cultivar, but the Yabukita trees on the farm where it was harvested are 66-year-old.
Right.
So it's probably one of the oldest proper Yabukita tea gardens still existing in Japan, because usually after 50, 60 years or so, cultivars are pulled out and then they are replanted with different species or with younger bushes. It's only native trees that tend to stay for 100 or more years. Seed-grown trees, they tend to be stronger, sturdier. But cultivar bushes,
A little bit.
they're often pulled out right around 50 years.
So, what do you mean that it's the oldest proper Yabukita garden?
So, what do you mean by proper?
Is that? Did you say that a minute ago?
I said it's the oldest remaining Yabukita tea garden. The other tea bushes that were planted around the same time when this garden was
okay.
planted
Gotcha.
have already been pulled out and replanted with something else.
And are they replaced? Are they pulled out and replaced because the tea starts tasting not so great, or is there some other reason? Is that just standard?
Oh, I don't want to go into this.
Okay.
I don't want to go into this.
Okay.
Because, and I'll get beaten up for saying that really by a lot of people in the tea industry. But I mean, you got to be correct about what you're saying. You got to be just, if it's the truth, speak the truth. Most tea farmers do not care about quality. They care about yield. They care about the return they get from their crop.
Okay.
They're not concerned about if the tea tastes good or not. They're concerned about, do they buy it, and do they buy it at a high price? And after 50 or 60 years, the tea trees start to get older, which means that their leaf starts to become smaller. They don't produce as much anymore. And so their yield goes down. It can just be an as fabulously tasting tea.
You just get less of it.
For my experience, I actually enjoy those teas more. But the yield goes down. And to them, that is not as profitable. So that's why those trees are pulled out. They're basically just crops.
Well, that's understandable. Well, that's
sad, but understandable.
Sad, but
but it's the way the world has gotten today. Average is okay, but I don't like to go for average. It's a very beautiful tree. Very, you can see the leaf is very minute. It's actually a little bit powdery, so it makes it difficult to get it off with this this pick. So let's use the brush.
Is there anything you find that is added as the tree gets older? So maybe
maturity
to the flavor?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You can taste the difference. For example, if you compare this Yabukita to a younger 10 or 20-year-old Yabukita bush, you can sense its maturity. You can feel that it's not as vigorous. It's not as alive and vibrant and aggressive almost. Very young tea trees can be almost like really aggressive in their greenness. They've got this stinginess to them, and that really is expressed as well. So when the tea tree gets older, I feel really that it starts to calm down. It gives you more peace. I mean, tea, when it's grown in a certain environment, in a certain circumstance, it also absorbs the energy of that place, the energy of who has been in contact with it, the energy of the natural environment. It has the nutrition from the soil and everything that is around it. So we're also presented with that energy. When we drink the tea, we receive that energy. And if it's very vigorous, vibrant, young tree, then of course we get its very young,
youthful energy.
Exactly. But if it's like calm and a bit more mature and older, then it also gives you that energy, and that is more conducive to a relaxing effect.
Interesting.
But we were going to talk about water,
right.
And we didn't even start talking about water. We already got sidetracked. Isn't that the beauty of talking? Well, for today's water, we actually, just right before we started this chat, we took a little stroll. We are here in Kyoto on the western side of the Imperial Palace. And it's a very central area, but Kyoto is known for its very good groundwater. And there's a lot of places, especially also around this area, where you can get very nice, clean groundwater for drinking. And just 1 minute walk up the road here is a small shrine dedicated to Sugawara no Michizane, who is an old aristocrat. And when he was born, it is said that at the shrine, there's a well there. That is where the birth water in which he was washed after he was born was gathered. So they're still sort of worshipping that place. They're worshipping him as well, because he's one of the few human beings that has been deified in the Shinto tradition.
He's also known as Tenjin.
Tenjin-san.
Tenjin-san.
So it's known as Tenjin-san.
So if you ever go to a shrine in Japan and it's a Tenjin shrine, it's dedicated to
Sugawara no Michizane. And this is where they got his birth water from. And so we just went up to the shrine and gathered the beautiful water there. 2 big tanks of 20 liters each. Very heavy.
Yes, very slippery.
But it's good water to use for tea. And why is that? Well, there are several reasons. There's the simple reason to begin with, but first let's enjoy this tea. Of course, it's much better than sink water. No, not sink water. Tap water.
Tap water.
It's sink water after it came out of the tap. Anyways. So it's much better than tap water, because tap water has always gone through a filtration system. Interestingly, in Japan, the only place really where they use something called osmosis, which is a much better way of filtering water, is in Osaka.
Really? Osaka?
Yeah, you wouldn't have guessed that.
No, not at all.
Probably the place in Japan where you can get the best tap water is Osaka.
Really?
When the earthquake hit Fukushima, and there was a tsunami, there was problems with possible water pollution as well through nuclear waste and everything that was going on there. So people were a bit scared of getting water from the tap and from everything around there. So they had a sort of water shortage.
Really? Even over here in Osaka?
Not in Osaka, but what they
around.
ended up doing around in Fukushima was to get
Okay.
water from Osaka.
Ah, gotcha.
And so family members that lived in Osaka and everything, they started bottling water from the tap in Osaka and send it to Fukushima.
Wow.
So also within Japan, Osaka's water is seen as one of the better tap waters.
And in other areas, sorry, go ahead.
In Kyoto, you don't want to drink tap water. Unfortunately, it's terrible.
Well, the water in Japan tends to be, the tap water in Japan tends to be pretty hard. Is that right?
It's because of all the minerals and
Yeah.
the chalk that is used in it to purify it.
Right. I was going to ask, do you know any specifics about how it's usually purified outside of Osaka?
So through minerals and adding like
the
chalk, although it's not as bad as in Europe. Because in Europe, even if you buy a new water kettle and you get water from the tap and just boil that, after a few times,
it's already got the scaling.
Yes. When I go back to Belgium sometime, not recently, but when I did go back to Belgium, I would always buy pet bottled water because the water from the tap, if I drink it, I would even get more thirsty than before I drank it, which is not a good
That's
sign.
not the point.
That's not the point of drinking some water.
But it doesn't make it taste very good either.
No, it doesn't.
It's not. The taste. I don't find it's too bad here. In Kyoto, I lived in Fairbanks, Alaska, for university, and especially on campus. I don't know if it was the filtration or the purification, or if it was just not good quality, but it was the most horrible tasting water that I've ever had. And it just tasted like metal all the time. And we always had to, that was another place that I usually got well water, actually, because it was the only water that wasn't terrible.
Yeah, well water is good. So let's get back to this, the reasons why I think well water is good. First of all, it's best to drink a tea with the water from the region where it was produced.
Right. You mentioned
because all that tea production is to extract the water content from the leaf and produce a dried leaf. And all that brewing tea really is to put that water content back in.
The tea.
So if you use the exact same water to brew the tea as the water that has been extracted, there's no friction gonna happen. It's the exact same material that just goes back into the leaf and just lets it come open. There's no added anything. So best what you can do is drink tea with the water from the area where it was produced. So if you can get well water from around Kyoto, then that's already close to what is available in the mountains around it. And if the tea is produced in Kyoto, then that is definitely the best water to go with.
Uji, for example?
Uji, for example, it's a bit far out, I think, but Wazukaya is still very similar as well. And most water in Japan is soft water.
Oh, soft water. Okay.
The tap water is hard.
Oh, gotcha. Tap water is hard.
The tap water is hard. It's still on the soft side if you compare it, though, but it's hard because of all the stuff that they've put in.
But
so you have to run it through several steps of filtration and everything before you can actually use it properly to drink tea. And that also affects the flavor of the tea, because if your tea was grown with soft water and you brew it with hard water, hardly any flavor or aroma is going to be released, because it's just, that's one of the traits of hard water as well. It sort of coats the soft being that this tea leaf is, and it doesn't let anything come out. Actually, hard water is said to be very good for soup stocks.
I think I've heard that.
So I heard that in the context of cooking Kyoto cuisine in Hokkaido. No, not in Hokkaido. In the southern part.
Kyushu?
Even further down.
Okinawa?
Okinawa, that's it. Okinawa. So cooking Kyoto cuisine is done with soft water. And if you boil something with soft water to get a dashi extract, a bouillon or something from kelp or from mushrooms, or then with soft water, a lot of it is released immediately. Whereas with hard water, it's not released as quickly.
Okay.
And you need more kelp, or more, you almost need 3 times or 4 times as much material
just based
to
on
get
the
the same thickness with hard water. But in other areas, for example, with I think it was getting a stock from meat. I'm not quite sure, but I think it was something from meat, and cooking that meat in hard water would be better because you can get the nice essence out of it, and then also coat the meat so that it doesn't dissolve. It doesn't fall apart, and you can still retain the meat as well to eat. I don't remember where I heard that, but it's a very interesting trait of water, and how the hardness of water, the components really that are in water, how they affect the tea, and of course the other things that it's used for. Water is one of the most vital sources in anything in life, I think. Well, we are made out of 70% water, is it?
That sounds right.
Water is used in everything in cooking. It's vital in Japanese cuisine. 99.9% of what you drink of tea, look at that color.
Ooh.
So 99% of this is water. So if you get good water, your tea will be even much better. If you get bad water, no matter how good the tea is,
it's not going to taste the same.
It's not going to taste the same.
So it's not necessarily hard water is better for tea or soft water is better.
I wouldn't generalize it. I would look at where is it grown, because for some Chinese teas, it's apparently said that hard water is better. And I would believe that really is affected by the water of the area where the tea was grown. If that was hard water, and the tea has absorbed a lot of minerals and is very used to that hard water, then it's probably better to brew it with hard water and get its true content out.
So that's why it's so important to know where your tea is coming from. Part of the reason.
Part of the reason, yes. To know what you can expect from the flavor, but also to know what type of water you want to add.
How to brew it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, soft water, what really does it mean? It's, do you know what soft water and hard water, what the difference is in?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you a very specific definition. No.
So the big difference is the dry rest.
Hard water has more.
Soft water generally is considered water that has a dry rest of less than 100. Is it milligram per liter? I think it is. So it's less than 100. Everything above that tends towards hard water, but most of the hard waters, I mean, I've seen hard waters in Belgium, mineral water. That you can just buy the PET bottle, and you look on the back, and it's like 1,200.
So that's very hard.
Like 1,200 milligrams per liter dry rest. It's like, where's the water?
No room for actual water left in there.
So you really have to be, well, I think, mindful of that.
Mhm.
Where does the water come from? But anything really is affected by water and soil.
Right, of course.
I think
Two main things that go into this plant.
the more that you can start with something like tea, or you can start with something like sake, or you can start with something like cooking or vegetables, or basically anything that we consume, eventually we will go back to either water and or soil. With tea, you look at the tea plant, where does it come from? You go to the tea garden, you think about the soil, you think about the roots, and then you think about brewing, you go to the water. With sake, it's the same. You think about the rice that you need, which rice is better, how is it grown, where does it come from, what's the soil like, etc., etc. And then because you want to make sake out of it, you need the water.
And you need a certain kind of water to make it as good as possible.
Yeah. And most sake breweries, they actually have their own well.
Yeah.
So that's where they get their water. They usually build their brewery where there's good water. So they begin with the well and then build the brewery around it, because water is so important for them.
Yes. I went to Keikan, one of the breweries down in Fushimi, which Fushimi used to be still is, a really good place for sake. And yeah, they have
very soft, very good water.
Oh yeah, and they have, I think, part of the tour, might not have been part of the tour, but right outside the brewery where you can go out and see, they have their well, and you can drink some water from it. I think even
there are a few sake vendors that have pet bottled water from Fushimi that's 45 milligrams per liter dry rest.
45.
So it's very, very soft, very nice, very good water. And I had that at a place a few days ago, where we were looking for a type of water that we could use, because I often go to other places and then also serve tea, but I don't always have the best tools with me. So sometimes they just give me the water that they have there. And here it just happened to be Kyoto tap water. You could smell it. The moment they had this iron kettle, they had a beautiful teapot. I brought some nice tea, but the water was just Kyoto tap water. And I know all my teas, and I know that when I drink that tea and there's something off, it's not my tea.
Know how it's supposed to be tasted, how it's supposed to taste.
So it's very strange, but I was like, how come this water is so smelly? And then we started looking for other options. And they had this pet bottled water from Fushimi. And we tried it with that and it was much better.
Wow. Just such a big difference just from different hard water versus soft water. I think most people don't really think about that much. I certainly don't.
If you are up for a challenge, or up for a little experiment, get out 2 bowls of matcha, or 2 bowls, and get some matcha ready, and boil some soft water and some hard water. And sure, wherever you are, you can go to the store and buy some hard water and soft water. Just boil some hard water, boil some soft water, get them ready. And with soft water, I say less than 100 milligrams per liter dry rest. And with hard water, try something very hard, like around 1,000. For the pH, the acidity, I wouldn't worry too much. Usually around 6 to 7 is good. A little bit more on the acid side is good for tea, really. Right. But if you have those 2 types of water, you got your 2 bowls of tea for matcha, get some matcha in each bowl and try whisking with the soft water and try whisking with the hard water.
Can you even tell the difference when you're just whisking it?
You can tell the difference when you're whisking it, and you can tell the difference after you whisked it. It's that tremendous. Definitely try it. And I can already tell you what is going to happen. With the soft water, you get a nice, bright green foam, very minute. With the hard water, you get brownish, very large bubbles. As something you can hardly call foam. If you are a very good whisker, and you, I mean, I have managed to make a foam on a bowl of matcha with hard water, but it disappears very immediately. The color of the foam is on the brownish side. It immediately oxidized just because of the interaction between the tea, the catechins in the tea, and the amounts of irons and minerals in the water. And if you then look at the color of the tea underneath the surface, underneath the foam, it's almost black for the one that is with hard water.
Wow.
It's the oxidation.
Just from that,
just from the oxidation. It's exactly what happens when, I don't know if anyone has seen my my video about the iron kettle. I did a video on YouTube on why you shouldn't brew tea in an iron kettle.
Right.
If you brew your tea in an iron kettle, the amount of the iron in the kettle will affect the tea and will start a process of oxidation, which renders the tea brown and then black. And it's the same with hard water. That interaction between the catechins in the matcha and the minerals in the hard water immediately creates that oxidation, and that beautiful green color that is still retained with soft water is immediately destroyed by the hard water.
Wow. I knew the quality of the water and the type of water that you used, affected how the tea tastes and everything, but I did not realize it was that big of a difference.
And it's also visible, really.
Yeah, I didn't think.
You wouldn't get this color with even brewing tea with hard water. Maybe it's something we should do next time as a little experiment. Get a few waters going.
So you can see the difference. That would be an interesting experiment.
Let's do that sometime.
Yeah. So if somebody has hard tap water and they don't have access to a well with soft water, for example, can you?
You're screwed.
You're screwed. You pretty much just have to go to the store and buy bottled water.
It's the best thing that I can suggest. Yeah, go to the store, buy soft water. Don't bother with hard water and trying to make it softer. And I mean, there's all these approaches. You can get a filtration on your tap. I've got it here in Kyoto as well, just in case. I've got a filter on the tap. Then I've got a Brita filter through which I run that water again. And so I'm filtering it twice. Then you can boil it in a proper iron kettle that also softens the water. Take the lid off, and so you let the steam and the chalk escape. That also softens the water. And you can also soften the water by putting charcoal in it and letting the charcoal sit in it.
Absorb it.
So there's all these approaches that you can take, but you're going to spend more time on
trying to soften your
water without getting a super great result.
It's better to just...
It will soften it a little bit, but it's not going to make it great water. Great water can be made greater by using these approaches. But bad water can be made great. It can just be made less bad. Yeah. So I wouldn't recommend really getting into all this. If you have access or have an opportunity to go to the store, buy some soft water, and
maybe find a well if you're in Kyoto.
Yeah, and I mean, we already do so much for tea. the people that I know that really love their tea.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know most of the people that we're watching will already have their own approach to their water,
Right.
because it's so vital to tea. And I mean, tea is not just about sitting here and drinking it. Tea can be just as much as about going to get everything that you need to enjoy a cup of tea at the end of the day.
Mm.
So it could be just as satisfying as hopping into your car, driving out into the mountains, walking up to a mountain, and doing a little hike. Get some water from the well, from a waterfall, or from a well, or from a neat water place on the mountain, and then come back down, and maybe along the way, or when you get back home, you sit down, start boiling your water. Maybe you even use some charcoal, create that really nice moment, and just savor that tea. And that tea is then not only the embodiment of the leaf that you purchased from a store, and the water from the tap, and just the feeling that you put into it, but then it also becomes the entire experience of going up to the mountains. And I need to turn that down, I see.
And that's one of the ways that tea is so enriching, I think.
You can bring so many things into the tea experience that it's not only about the tea itself. It becomes just
but the process
life.
of making the tea and taking a moment, and the experiences that you have for your tea.
It's like what we just did. We took a walk. We talked a bit about Sugawara no Michizane. We
saw some cherry blossoms.
We saw some cherry blossoms. We saw a plum tree that's already bloomed out. We paid our respects to the gods, and then we gathered our water, struggled bringing it back, and then
I certainly did, yeah.
And then we went on with boiling it and getting ready for everything. And that's just the entire experience. It's not just, oh, look at this color. Oh, it's a nice scent, good taste,
good,
nice,
great.
very good tea. No, that's also important, but that's really not what it's all about. It's just
not the only thing.
Yeah.
Can really make a lifestyle around tea.
Tea is a lifestyle, is a way of life.
Correct.
And what you get out of it and what you apply to your life is your decision. But tea in itself is already a way of life. It's a way of being, a way of thinking. It's a philosophy. It's it's a way of being. Well.
So you mentioned you have some water, like a Brita filter, and a water purification filter on your tap as well.
Yeah.
Do you find that makes much of a difference if you brew tea with just unfiltered tap water?
Yeah, it does. It does. It makes
quite a bit of difference.
Makes quite a bit of difference, yeah.
So in a pinch, you could get by with the filtered water?
Yes.
That's good.
It filters out most of those the things that are added to it to purify it, to clean it. But I also feel that filtered water hasn't got much body or life to it. It's like dead water.
So it still doesn't compare to the
live water from the mountains or from the ground. No, it doesn't. Yeah. No, you can feel that there's not much to be gained from that water.
Well, that's a lot to think about. I definitely will be more mindful about the water that I use. I also have a water filter at home that I actually need to buy a new filter for. But I still notice, especially with the second and third infusions, that, and especially if it gets a little bit cooler, if I let it cool a little bit, can kind of taste this weird, almost mustiness that I imagine is, I mean, I'm using the same tea as we use here, and using the same brewing methods. And I just do it in a glass. Well, maybe my vessel also has something to do with it, but I sometimes get this weird mustiness that must be in part because of the water.
Yeah. Always safe to blame the water.
Oh, I wonder if there's a well or something near my house. I know I've seen some in Kyoto around, like if you hike, some of the hikes that you can go around Kyoto. There's a, can't remember where I went recently, but there was a well that it even had a little cup there if you wanted to drink some of the water. It was very good.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember where that was.
I think most of them are okay. People can be a little bit overcautious.
Yeah.
The restrictions around them are also somewhat overcautious sometimes, but
well, better than not being cautious enough.
It's good to find a place where you can get live water, because it's a very important part of our diet. Either water or soil is what we eat. It's like we get things from the soil. Every life on this planet comes from the soil. Everything that we put into ourselves has grown upon soil, has gotten its nourishment from the soil, and so we're basically eating the earth. We're eating the planet. We get a piece of the planet to become a larger piece on the planet and then go back to the planet. So it's either water or soil, and water is just as important for the soil itself as well. And if you think that if you don't get good water with enough nourishment to maintain the soil, then what are we going to do with water that is not really going to give us any benefits, any nourishment, any life force? And I know a few people that, especially people that live in Kyoto, they gather their drinking water every morning. They take a walk to a nearby well, and they gather their drinking water for the day at that place, and that's what they drink, just to get that live water and to sort of replenish their water source in the body with life that has a proper energy, a proper source of nourishment. Whereas if you drink tap water all day, then let's just say it's liquid. It fits.
Just the water.
It fits, but doesn't do the trick.
That sounds like a nice little morning ritual too. Take a nice little walk.
Yeah. Little morning ritual.
Yeah.
Great if you have something like that very nearby. There's a lot of places in Kyoto, and there's many famous waters of Kyoto. Some of the wells are already dry, and again, people building underground systems have dried up a lot of the wells as well. So it's becoming more and more difficult to get a proper water source in the city. But there's still quite a few around. And
actually, this is maybe not quite so related to tea, but related to the groundwater in Kyoto. Nishiki Markets, which is, if you don't know, it's a very historical market here in Kyoto that is still a pretty popular tourist site. You can still go and there's a lot of little food vendors, there's some sake vendors.
Yeah, it's a very nice place, and it's like this one narrow, long street of
it's just really classic
little market kind of
very,
stalls.
Classic kind of a Japan shopping arcade kind of thing. And if you, from what I remember of the history of that Nishiki Market, is the reason that it's there is because there was an aquifer that ran very close to the grounds. It might still actually have water in it. So you could get very clean water, and that's why people were setting up their shops. And this is, long time ago. It's a very old, it's got a very long history.
It's still there.
Yeah.
You can still get the water from that shrine that is at the
the
entrance.
What's that called? Nishiki? Nishiki? I feel like it's just Nishiki Shrine.
Yeah, it's probably just Nishiki Shrine. I have no idea what the name is of it.
Yeah, well, if you ever get a chance to visit Kyoto, highly recommend. And then, the little shrine there is also very interesting, I think. It's a, bustling, modern shopping arcade called Teramachi. And then you have this little shrine.
The shrine on the other side of it. And you cross Teramachi, and then you get into the
Nishiki.
The old Nishiki. Well, I think that is where we'll have to cut it off for today. Well, it's just a nice moment sharing our water gathering experience with everyone.
Learning a bit about the importance of water and how it affects your tea.
Oh yeah.
And everything else.
So keep that in mind, and think about what you put into your body as well. Only get the things that will do good for your body. Very important.
Yes. Well, thank you all for watching. We will see you next week.
Probably next week or the week after. We'll still be doing this frequently.
Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to message.
And if you find yourself in Kyoto,
please come visit.
Please come visit the Tea Crane, which is what I'm going to open right now, so we can get some visitors and we can get some more tea and talks going. But for now, I wish you all a good evening, a good morning, a good afternoon, and see you again very soon. Enjoy the tea, keep brewing. Bye-bye.